All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here as people are logging on. Just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to be recording this as an on-demand webinar, so you'll be able to re-watch this, or if somebody happened to miss it, or in the future, they'll be able to call the class up and get the information in full. My name is Greg. I'm the VA team leader for our VA agent group here in Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, Southeast Indiana. We cover all four counties in the southwest part of the state, plus the surrounding counties up in the southern Dayton area, over into Clinton County, Greene, Brown, Adams, and then the counties that abut Ohio, both in Southeast Indiana and Northern Kentucky. So if you're looking in this market, especially if you're looking multi-state in this market, we certainly are a great place for you. So today's class, we kind of put it together with the idea that a lot of our veteran clients that we have come to us, and they have a lot of knowledge about the VA home loan. They might even have their VA home loan already pre-approved and in place, but don't really know as much about what happens from that point on, how you navigate through the process and get to the closing, how all the inspections work, how do the showings work, how much money do you need during the process, that kind of thing. So we're going to talk about the purchase process. We're also going to talk about some strategy things in reference to getting the best buy on a home, beating out other buyers for that property if you're in competition. And at the bottom there, you'll see a reference to the one thing most veterans get wrong when making an offer. We're going to talk about that. It's not so much getting something wrong. It's more of an assumption that's wrong as we get started. And we as agents on the team, we have kind of a consensus that this is something that comes up over and over again. So we'll talk about that. More specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about the VA loan from the standpoint of the money that you need once we get started, what happens during the VA purchase process and when, as far as inspections and things like that. What about requirements for the house itself? What should we be looking for? When you find something that you like and we make an offer, you might have heard that sometimes a seller or an agent can be resistant, which is true. And how do we handle that? And what do we do to get the house for you? Once your offer is accepted, how does that process work with the VA inspection and with the closing? So we'll go through all of that. Most of our clients come to us one of two different ways. Number one, you're either a referral from Veterans United Realty or from Veterans United Home Loans, and we're part of the Veterans United Network and have been for many years. And they'll set you up with us as a specialist in this market, with the benefit to you being that you're working with somebody that A, knows the market, B, has a lot of expertise in the VA process to make things easier and more likely to get to the end of the road and you've had a real good experience. The other folks come to us from another marketing avenue where you're interested in learning more about the VA purchase process and how it all works. We've put together a 4-step system over the years that I think is a real world-class system in working through that process. It's going to start with step 1, which is the home loan. As mentioned, some of you have already been pre-approved for that, so congrats. If you have not, just know that we'll be able to get that all set up for you. The second step has to do with the actual searching of a home. What are the best ways to search? where are the best outlets? How do we make sure that you're finding out about homes that drop in price and come back up on the market and things like that? Thirdly, when you pick out those homes that you want to see, how does that all work? What does the listing agent do? What's the best way to go about making an offer if you're in competition and things like that? And then finally, we'll be at the closing, and that's where we're sitting there with you, making sure that that payment is what it's supposed to be, that there's no surprises, that the numbers all make sense. So one of the first questions that we typically get is, how much money am I going to need through this process? So this kind of relates to the step one time when we're getting the loan and the money's lined up that you need to get started. And we find that oftentimes the veteran comes in knowing that there's no down payment with VA, but not necessarily knowing or understanding that there's other costs that you're going to have to take care of along the way. And there's basically four of those. The first, once your house goes under contract, you're going to have to put up something called earnest money, and that's also called a good faith deposit. And that basically can be anywhere from typically $500 to $1,000. It could be a little bit more if the home is higher priced. And that money just sits in a trust account with our title company or with the broker, and it's used towards anything that you need to close. But its main purpose is, as it says, good faith, is that you're putting some money up, you're serious about this, you're going to see it through. If for whatever reason that money is not needed for anything with the loan, then you would get that back at closing. But that's typically due in the first couple of days that your house goes under contract. Numbers 2 and 3 of the things that you need to allot for have to do with inspections. One of those inspections is mandatory, and one of those is optional. The optional inspection is a whole house inspection where you will hire a home inspector to come out on your behalf. And they're going to look at the home, give you a report. The idea is that they're looking for major expensive defects that weren't disclosed by the seller, or perhaps they were disclosed, but upon further review, it's a lot more serious than even the seller thought it was. So the idea is to do this inspection so that you can avoid any real expensive things that you weren't expecting once you take ownership of the home. So once we get that report, a couple things we can do. We can look at it and go, there's way too much here that we want to deal with, and terminate the deal. We can also go back and renegotiate for repairs or a price change or something like that. So that inspection is typically $500 to $700, $750, and it is optional. We do recommend in most cases that you do it. The reason not to do it might be if you have a lot of experience with home fix-up projects, or you have somebody with you that looked at the home that knows a lot about that stuff, that might make sense. To be honest, it could also be a negotiating tool. Pulling that inspection off of the contract does strengthen your offer, because that seller is not thinking that you're going to come back and ask for repairs. So it can help in that way as well. At the end of the day, we recommend that you do one. So that's optional. The mandatory is the VA inspection, and that's the one where the VA representative comes out. They're going to look at the property, and they're looking mainly for big ticket, safety, sanitary type things. If there's a well, that water's got to be tested. If the roof has no life left in it, that's going to have to be dealt with. If there's signs of lead paint that might be flaking, broken glass, that's got to be dealt with. Those kinds of things. It is an inspection, but it's not near as intrusive as the optional whole house inspection, which is why we recommend those. The VA inspector has some things that they're looking at, but it's not near as detailed. What they do do a lot of due diligence on, though, is value. So when they look at a property, not only they're looking at the condition, but more so they're looking at the sales price, and they're trying to see if there are sales in the area, closed sales that prove as evidence that the property is worth what you and the seller have negotiated. So a couple things come into play there is when we look at a property, because we've done so many of these, we can give you a pretty good idea as best we can, both on condition and on the value. If we think there's going to be a problem with the VA appraisal, every appraiser is different, so there's no guarantees. But as best we can, we don't want you spending that $700 if if it can be avoided. So roughly 700 for that, 500 or so, up to 700 for the whole house inspection. And then the most expensive thing that you're going to need is the closing cost of that loan. Typically, you're looking at 2 to 3% of the purchase price. Closing costs can be paid out of pocket. They can also be paid by the homeowner as part of a negotiated package. So we'll talk more about that and how that works. Another question that we get is, does the VA limit our selections? Are there fewer houses for us to look at because of the VA financing? And the answer is yes and no. For the most part, though, as long as a home can pass a VA home inspection, then it's good to go as far as being able to qualify to be used for a VA purchase. Where you run into issues, they have to do with condition. VA is pretty much a move-in ready program, meaning that the house can't need a ton of work. So that usually eliminates foreclosures and distressed sales and things like that, because they simply just are not in good enough shape to go VA. The other thing that can disqualify a home is the architectural design. If you're looking in a area and the property is really different from the other homes that kind of encompass an area that an appraiser is going to look at, then that can be a problem. So, for example, if you're looking at a log home and there's nothing that has sold anywhere close of that variety, then that can be an issue because they're not able to find evidence of the value. So log homes, barn dominiums, things like that can sometimes be a problem because they're different. But for the most part, as long as the house is in good enough shape, then we're good to go. So something else that you might have heard is that many home sellers in the area, they're resistant of the VA offer, of accepting it and taking their home off the market. Well, why is that? So the reason is, and it has to do with the VA inspection, and a lot of that has to do with the past and how the VA used to operate. So to be honest, when I got started in the late 80s and 90s, a VA purchase was a real difficult thing to get through. There was a checklist of things that the home had to have, and if a box couldn't be checked, then it could very well be a problem and torpedoed many VA deals. And what happened over the years is that VA went from that checklist kind of system to what we have today, which is more of a common sense approach where the VA representative can go out. And if they think something's a legitimate defect, then they're gonna write it up. If they think the roof has no life left in it, they're gonna write that up. If they see flaking paint, which could be lead, they're gonna write that up. But it's to their discretion whether or not they think it's truly a an issue or a hazard. Now they will again look pretty tightly at the value, but as far as conditions go, that's what they do today. But the thing is that home sellers and a lot of times the listing agent, they don't know that. They're still relying on maybe a bad experience they had 20 years ago, or something their broker told them, or if they're a not younger agent, something their mentor might have told them about the VA. So they come in with a little bit of a jaded attitude about it. So what we want to do is change that if possible. So we put together a PDF that we send with all of our offers, and it basically does just that. It talks about how the VA used to be and how the VA is now. And the idea is that we want to educate that agent, because most agents don't have a lot of experience with VA financing in this market. And we also want to educate that seller for the same reason, in case they have heard bad things about the VA loan process. The benefit to you, of course, is that if we can do that, and they're more open to it, then that's going to help us get your loan accepted. Now, the other part of that is when we actually are thinking about preparing the offer, what can we do to help you increase your chances of getting that offer accepted? Well, the first thing we just talked about is to kind of change the perception of what the VA offer is. But the second thing is, in the real world, especially if you're going to be looking at brand new listings on the market, is we need to be able to do more than just send the contract saying it's VA financing. If it's a home that you're really interested in, having a pre-approval letter is great, but oftentimes that's going to be enough. So what we've put together is something that we call our offer toolbox, and that's going to be a list of a dozen or so strategies that you can use to separate yourself from the competition. So if you have a home that you really, really are interested in and you don't want to lose it, this is the one. What can we do to make sure that is as likely to happen as we can make it? So the answer would be pulling out one or several of these strategies and putting those in the contract. So an example of one of those would be something like a escalation clause, where let's say the house is listed for $300,000. You would prefer to pay $300,000 or less if possible, but it's been on the market one day. You would go higher than the asking price if you had to, but you really don't want to. So do you just offer the $300,000 and see what happens, or is there something else you can do? So the other thing you can do is to put in verbiage in the offer that if there is another contract that's over $300,000, your offer will automatically escalate to a number higher than that, up to a certain cap. So that way, if an offer comes in at, let's say, 304 and you wrote 300, then your offer would slide to 306, and you get the house at a number that you don't love, but you're okay with. If no other offer comes on the table, or the other offers are lower, then you get the house for the price that you offered, and didn't have to overstep when in offering a higher number, when you didn't have to do that anyway. So it's kind of a way to have your cake and eat it too, as far as getting the house at a certain number, but still not being kicked to the curb if another offer is available. The other part about that has to do, again, with that one thing one assumption that causes problems when we write offers. And as an agent team, we kind of have a consensus that we see this over and over. And that is when you come into the process and you've done your research on the loan and you've been um, uh, given all the numbers from your loan officer, one of the things that they'll often say is that the seller can pay your closing costs. And that is true. I alluded to that up front. But again, what they don't typically say is that that has to be negotiated into the deal. It's not anything that's automatic, and it's not something that should be assumed. And depending on the market, it might not be possible to do. And the reason for that is that those seller paid closing costs come out of that seller's bottom line. And if you're in a market where you have a lot of competition for homes when they become available, which a lot of markets in our general area qualify, then that the seller is going to be less likely to give you back those closing costs, which can be, as I mentioned, $5,000 or $6,000. They're going to be less likely to do that because they have other options that don't require that. So from a negotiating strength standpoint, it's really a better idea to arrange to pay your own closing costs if you can. If you can't, then we put those deals together all the time. It's not the end of the world. It's just that you can write a cleaner offer, especially if you're using some of the other techniques in the toolbox. You'll maximize your chance of getting the home at the price you want to get it for if you can pay your own closing cost fees. If you can't, just know two things. Number one, that we might have to look at more houses to find an owner that is willing to pay those. Number two, that's not free money. It's coming out of the seller's bottom line. So oftentimes they're going to pad the price of the house to pay back those closing cost concessions to you. So you're probably going to pay a little bit more, finance a little bit higher number. And all of that certainly is better than not buying at all or staying in a rental or something like that. But just know that it might be a little bit trickier to find someone to do that depending where you're looking. One word of advice there is if you do need the concessions, a lot of times a house gets listed and it might sit on the market for a week or 2 weeks or 30 days before it sells. And those situations, you still have a pretty good chance of getting concessions negotiated in there. It's when you're trying to jump on those new listings when they come up and everybody's looking at them and there's several people making offers potentially. That's where it can be more difficult, and it really is tough to get those concessions included. So as a rule, if you can pay your own concessions, it's a benefit for you. So once we've looked at the home, once we get it under contract, and maybe we've used some of those toolbox techniques to get it for you, now we're into the next phase where the due diligence starts. You'll do your inspections, and then the VA does their process. Well, what is that about, and what are they looking for? Well, as mentioned, they're going to come in and they're going to make sure that the house meets minimum standards that the VA will accept in condition and sanitation and things like that. And number two, they're going to make sure that the house is not priced too high for, in their opinion, the VA to insure. So one of the ways that we combat that is when you find a house that you're interested in, because we have done so many of these VA deals, we can kind of simulate a VA appraisal, whereas we can take a lot of those same techniques that VA appraiser is going to use and kind of see, what do we think? Do we think based on all of that information. Do we think that the VA is going to have a problem with it? And we'll have that conversation. If we do, then it's not 100% don't go forward. Just know that it might be a little bit tricky because you are putting about $700 on the line, and if it doesn't work out, you don't get that money back. So we want to make sure as best we can that we got your back on that. If it's close, that's not unusual. But what we're looking for is just evidence that there's no way this is going to work. And if we see that, we want to make sure that we let you know, so we don't get into a situation where an appraisal could have been avoided because we kind of knew going in that it was going to be a problem. So as mentioned, there's a good chance that you were referred to us by Veterans United Realty and Veterans United Home Loans, and it's a network that we've been a part of for years. Actually, a portion of what we make, if we do help you with your purchase or sale, goes back to Veterans United. Part of that goes to their Veterans United Foundation, which helps veteran causes. So it's something that everybody is passionate about. All of our agents on our team, this is most of what we do is veteran business. If it's not a veteran client, it's a friend or a personal referral. So this is what we do. This is what gets us up in the morning and keeps us excited about the business that we are in. As mentioned, we can handle Greater Cincinnati, Southern Dayton, the outer counties, Northern Kentucky, Southeast Indiana. We have a team of agents and plenty of support people to assist with administering the transactional details to make everything a good experience for you. One of the nice things about this network is the relationships that we have built with our clients. We've been at weddings, we've been invited to housewarmings, we've made personal friends from folks that we've worked with, and it's just awesome working with our awesome veterans through the home buying and selling process. We also, as I've indicated, we have tools in place to benefit you to help get your offer accepted. It's not enough to work with just a typical real estate agent all the time because they're not going to know the ins and outs of how to get this type of transaction put together, and we do. We use the latest technology from on a buying standpoint, where you're going to know in real time what homes are available and are matches to you. You're going to learn as we survey the market several times a week about price reductions or things that are coming back up on the market. And those are good times to make an offer because you've got a seller now where something's happened and they're a little disappointed, or maybe they're a little panicked, and it's a good time to kind of swoop in there and put a deal together. Well, you can't do that unless you know about it. And that's what the technology does. On the selling side, we do all professional photography. We use the most up-to-date apps to set appointments and things like that to make sure that everything is a good experience for you. Also, with Veterans United, there are certain financial benefits for staying in the network. So especially if you're looking to buy and sell a home at the same time. So I have a house to sell, I'm going to buy another one. I want to use my VA loan on the next house. You definitely want to talk to us about that bundled benefit because it does give you a better interest rate on the house that you're looking to buy. So the next step would be to just give me a call or shoot me a text. I would love to set up a consultation with you and chat about kind of your situation and what's the best way to go about this, and talk to you more about the team and the process and to get started. As always, thank you for your service and thank you for watching today's webinar, and hope to talk to you soon.